Welcome back to the Earth Files, my weekly-ish series where I tell you about significant, spooky, or just plain weird happenings in the world of Earth science. This week, we're mainly going geology adjacent to talk about a couple of significant archaeology stories, but we'll wrap up with a volcano. A story has been making the rounds that archaeologists may have found a tunnel leading to Cleopatra VII's tomb. Archaeologist Kathleen Martinez has been searching for Cleopatra's tomb for going on 20 years and now believes it may lie at the end of a large Greco-Roman style tunnel beneath the Taposiris Magna temple, which is located about 30 miles west of Alexandria. The temple dates back to the Ptolemaic dynasty, which was the last of the Egyptian dynasties before the Romans took over. Cleopatra ruled Ptolemaic Egypt from 51 to 30 BCE. She was the last pharaoh and famously took her own life after the death of her lover and Roman general Mark Antony. Historians believe the two were buried together, but their tomb was lost to the ages. Finding a royal Ptolemaic tomb would be significant on its own, and finding Cleopatra's would be one of the greatest ancient Egyptian discoveries of all time. I'll be honest, I was immediately skeptical, so I checked in with some archaeology friends, namely Annalise Baer. Here's what I learned. Spoiler alert, you may be disappointed. Importantly, this archaeological team has known about and has been excavating this tunnel for a few years now. It's talked about in this Live Science article from 2020, and other sources mention the tunnels as early as 2016. To be fair, it is a very impressive tunnel. It's 40 feet underground, 6.5 feet high, and extends for almost a mile. They have found other mummies in the vicinity of the Taposiris Magna temple, as well as Ptolemaic artifacts related to Cleopatra and Mark Antony as they've been excavating the area, which are important in their own right. However, it is very unlikely that this tunnel leads to Cleopatra's tomb. It would have been quite a distance to travel from Alexandria back in the day, so it doesn't make a lot of sense that it would have been her burial site. It's more likely that she was buried in Alexandria. Her tomb may be underwater now, as much of the ancient Alexandrian harbor, including Cleopatra's palace, was submerged due to large earthquakes and resulting tsunamis that changed the coastal landscape there. We know that there was a Ptolemy family mausoleum in that now submerged area, and that Cleopatra had commissioned her own personal mausoleum. Her tomb could also be buried beneath the infrastructure of the modern city of Alexandria. All that said, I understand the motivation to push press releases like this. Cleopatra's tomb would be a major find, and news stories mean excitement about the search and ultimately more funding towards continuing it. Just be sure to take them with a grain of salt unless they've actually found the tomb, not just a tunnel that maybe, possibly, perhaps, but probably not leads to it. For our second story, we're talking about a different kind of mummy. Many of you are probably already familiar with Otzi, the ice mummy, discovered in 1991 in a mountain pass in the Alps. For those who aren't, Otzi is a naturally mummified 5,100-year-old murder victim who was named after the nearby Otstal Valley. He is one of the oldest and best preserved mummies to ever be found. It was originally assumed that Otzi had taken up refuge in the mountains late in the year, where he was soon covered in winter snow and then glacial ice as the planet dipped into a cold period, remaining undisturbed until that warm summer in 1991. Because of this, it was also assumed that Otzi was a very unusual find, but a new paper published last week sets out to challenge that. As global temperatures have continued to rise, many more ancient remains and relics have been exposed from melting ice around the world, and thus our understanding of glacial archaeology has improved. In Otzi's case, new research on the grass, dung, and other organic material in the gully where he was found revealed that they grew or were deposited after Otzi's death, meaning that he was periodically exposed to the elements, likely explaining some of the more advanced decomposition or wear on parts of his body and belongings. Additionally, seeds and leaves found around him are more suggestive of a spring death rather than late fall, so he may also have been exposed during an entire alpine summer right after he died. This is significant because it means that these types of mummies don't require such a specific set of conditions to be preserved. And as much as I would prefer the glaciers not be melting away, it will be fascinating to see what gets exposed over the coming decades in mountain passes like this. For our final story this week, because I will never miss out on an opportunity to talk about volcanoes, it's been confirmed that the January 15th, 2022 underwater eruption of the Hunga Tonga Hunga Ha'apai volcano produced the highest volcanic plume ever recorded. At 35 miles high, it punched its way halfway to space and about 3 miles into the mesosphere, the third layer of the atmosphere, in under 30 minutes. The previous record was held by Mount Pinatubo, whose plume reached 25 miles high in 1991. Volcanic eruptions that occur near the surface of a body of water or in contact with groundwater are some of the most explosive on Earth, even if they are comparatively small in terms of the amount of magma erupted at much larger volcanoes. At depth, varying amounts of water can be dissolved in magma, but at shallow depths, interaction between the two means the water flashes to steam, explosively expanding and driving a more explosive eruption than would have otherwise occurred.